Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, baby. Hey, baby. Hi, everyone.
Oh, hello there.
Is everybody over it? Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
No, the Commanders just played. We've just been distracted. It also still needs to get approved, by the way, which, you know.
I'm waiting for after the Commanders win this weekend, all of the "you ruined Christmas" tweets. I'm waiting for that because it's not going to be the high pick that you are now anticipating.
Sure, it's Tuesday and you said they're going to win. So let's see how this turns out in 4 days.
Well, I haven't watched any film of the Jets. I'm going to guess it's going to look about as ugly as the Commanders lately.
Can I just save you some time? When does the film matter playing against this team?
It did last week. I didn't talk a lot about it, but I was kind of on it. I'm like, I'm like, the score should be close. I'm like, I didn't think they were going to win, but I'm like, I think the score is going to be a little closer than you think.
It technically wasn't. So then Brissett came in.
I said this yesterday, in the game, not before the game, but in the game, I would have pulled hell earlier.
Okay. Yeah.
I would have. I verbally said it on the broadcast. I said when they got the ball, it was 20-0. They got the ball back at midfield after they stopped them that 3-0, got the punt, and I said, I would be thinking about it.
Yeah.
Because of the way he was going, and then they went down the field and scored, so that's now off the table. But then it reverted back, and it was 28-7, and they did what they did, and then all of a sudden it looked better.
Right.
But I was on it with Hal. I think he's had a bad couple of weeks. He's had a really bad couple of weeks.
No, the 3-and-outs are brutal. Like that, I think that's actually the worst part about all of it is that the offense is so inept. They are getting the ball back when the scores is still close and then doing literally nothing with it.
This defense needs to stay upfield a little bit.
Yes, correct. You're doing them no favors.
You're doing them no favors. Yeah. They're doing them no favors. All right, let's talk about the Eagles here to start because they lost again last night.
You're on it. I'll give you a credit on that one.
They're freaking out.
Yeah,
they're freaking out too. Like they're the first ever 10-4 team that is probably going to win their division and be the 2 seed, by the way. Probably going to win the division because they play Arizona Giants. And the Cowboys play at Miami, Detroit, and Washington. They could lose their next 2.
That's right.
Like they could. I mean, they may not, but at Miami, Detroit, they could lose. And in fact, like if you kind of just look at the schedule, even with the way Philadelphia is going right now, I mean, they could win all 3 of theirs: Giants, Cardinals, Giants. So they're probably still going to win that division. And I haven't seen a fan base that will end up 13-4 and be less confident about themselves ever.
Well,
have you ever seen anything like this? Like they're losing it. They're completely, utterly losing it. They're 10-4. They're 10-4.
I'd have to look it up. What 10-4 team has had a 3-game losing streak though? Like has that?
Is it 4? 4 games, right?
Have they lost 4 in a row? Was that 3?
Sure.
I thought. Okay. Either way.
Yeah, 3 in a row. You're right. They lost that crazy game to the Jets.
Yes.
Then it's 3 in a row, but it's 3 good teams.
Right. Exactly. So I don't know the last team that's
Niners, Cowboys, and they got smoked by both of them. And then last night they just blew it. Really.
Yeah. Last night was sloppy. I mean, it was just sloppy.
I thought it would be. Predictably. That's a tough place to play. We went up there. It's a very tough place to play. It's a long trip. Tough place to win. Seattle needed it.
Yeah.
Needed it. And then once I heard Hurts was sick, I'm like, well, if he doesn't play, they're going to lose.
Right.
And if he does, let's just see. And you saw what you saw.
Right.
And their defense isn't very good. You can go to Patricia all you want. It's just they're not very good. I said this early with them. I'm like, they don't look the same. They changed both coordinators, and they were fortunate to win the amount of games that they won early in the season. They could have lost their opener to New England very easily. They could have lost that Minnesota game easily. They could have lost the first Commanders game easily, but they got through and won all of them. Mm-hmm. Had they lost 1 or 2 of them, and that was reasonable at the time, they should be freaking out. But because they're 10-4, I kind of just don't even want to hear it, even on the losing streak that they're on. Like, you were just in the Super Bowl. You still have a really good team. You're probably going to win your division. I would freak out if Dallas wins the division now because the schedule sets up with the same record that they should. Dallas will probably lose 1 of these next 2.
Right.
And Philadelphia should not lose again before the playoffs, which means they're a division winner.
Where is the Miami game? Is it down there?
Yeah. I mean, they could lose either one. If Tyreek doesn't play, it's a different story. But if he does, then let's see. Still, they could lose to either one of them, Detroit or Miami.
Well, I don't know if you saw the quotes from Joe Brady out of Buffalo, too. Like, he actually said, because Cook had like 1 billion yards. I forget what his actual stat line, but it was crazy, like 150 yards or something crazy like that. He actually said the game plan going in was not to run the ball, but they were so bad at their run defense, he changed the game plan mid-game. So Miami's staring at that going, yeah, we got this guy Mostert who just broke the touchdown record for the franchise this year, and their backup running backs are still pretty good too. So, yeah, I would not be shocked at all one bit if Miami just plays ball control and does the same thing that Buffalo did.
I mean, they switched defensive coordinators late in the season.
Yeah.
Switched. Didn't fire them. Switched. Yeah. Their fans are freaking out. They're acting crazy.
I have to give Joe Fortenbaugh, who comes on before us, the best question in the world. He asked Jeff Saturday, well, Jeff, you were a head coach last year, and Matt Patricia has taken over the defense. The offense looked terrible. Should he call both? I was like, the layers to that one is incredible.
I do like seeing the smirk wiped off of Sirianni's face, too. That is fun.
Yeah,
because that guy's been smirking.
Because he looks like he's from Jersey and Philly.
I know.
Like he looks like he's from the area.
They're just wiping the smirk off. He
gets
of
so
his face.
angry at things too. I mean, he is pure Philly in a head coach form. But yeah, it's the best.
You want to freak out? Like they got the Giants at home next week.
Yeah.
If they somehow lose, which they won't,
it's Monday night too, or Monday day, whatever it is. It's like 4:30.
Yeah,
or 1 o'clock. Yeah. Okay.
Wait a minute. No, they're playing Christmas.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's Monday.
Right, Monday.
That's Monday.
Monday day.
Yeah.
If they lose that, I will go full. You need to freak out.
Is it?
But assuming they're playing Giants Cardinals at home.
That's in Philly.
Yes.
Oh, Philly crowd on Christmas. If they somehow blow that game,
they're going to show all the Santa Claus stuff.
It's going to be all-time viral.
Throwing
videos.
snowballs at Santa Claus. We're going to get all that.
Well, we were getting people.
This is a car wreck. These are my favorites. This is a car wreck game. Like they should win.
The Bills.
If they don't, these people are going to lose their minds up there.
They lost no. I forget what the last loss at home was for them. I don't know if you have yours.
Last loss at home,
yeah.
Niners.
Okay, so when they lost to the Niners, there were videos of people in the stands like ripping their jerseys off and stomping on them, which was ridiculous.
At that point, they were 10 and 2.
Yeah. So I
remember saying that at the time. I'm like, they put too much into it going in. Remember, they were talking. Then they got blown out.
Of the year or whatever.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is why you can't do
and the
that.
Niners
because
like,
if you lose, so what? They're good.
Yeah.
Like, what? So what?
And the Niners were like, this isn't our biggest game, and you guys beat us last year to go to the Super Bowl.
No. They're broken right now, but
they're so unhinged right now.
I know. They're unhinged.
They're standing out of the.
They're being real, they know their record even shouldn't be this.
They're
really.
standing outside the team facility. I don't know. Did you see that last week? Like for the last couple of weeks, when things have been going wrong, somebody stands outside of the team facility, like holding up signs that need to change.
Like run the ball more and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I saw
or
that.
like
and Sirianni, I saw a clip of him bringing coffee to them, and something like that,
right.
which was the right move.
But they've now done it like 3 weeks in a row because of
they're losing their minds.
Yeah.
They're going to be fine though. They're going to win their next 3. They're going to win their division, which they're going to get right. But
they're going to be bugging going into the playoffs. That's the best part about it. You and I have seen this so many times where a team looks good, but down the stretch limps in, and you just know they're going to be right for the picking.
But here's the silliest part of it: the Niners play the Ravens this week.
Yeah,
they could lose.
Yeah.
If they lose, you're tied in the standings, and the 1 seed is on the line.
Yeah.
I've never seen a team that's got the 1 seed on the line freaking out the way that they're freaking out.
The best.
What are you freaking out about? Okay, so you lost at Seattle, and
right.
Everybody does. Like, it's a really tough place to play, and they had to win last night. They had to win last night. Anyway, it's fun. And then we got this. Like, listen to Jalen Hurts. This is Jalen Hurts after the game last night.
In those situations,
I've been talking about execution all year. Been on the same page. Everyone been on the same page, and we didn't execute. I don't think we're committed enough. Just got to turn it around. It's a challenge that we have to embrace. Just continue to see it through.
What do you mean by that? About being committed enough?
Commitment. I don't know that. I had a dictionary on me now. Excuse me. I don't know how else to say.
That's pretty good. I don't have a dictionary of it right now. Maybe you shouldn't use the word, but it was a funny line.
Yeah.
They're freaking out.
Yep.
They're 10 and 4. Guys, everything's fine. World's not on fire. I mean, I know they're having a losing streak here, but okay.
Right.
Look who they lost to. Like, what are you freaking out about?
This is why at the beginning of the year it was fine, but having A.J. Brown pop off every single game of when he's not getting the ball, this is seemingly why it's wearing on them, because They run the ball really well. He runs the ball really well. I think he leads the league in yards for quarterback, and I believe it's touching. He's killing the touchdowns too as well.
Right, because that's like an unstoppable play.
Yeah, and not only that, but he's also just scrambling too.
I don't want to hear about it making that illegal. By the way,
No.
They're the only ones that do it.
Everyone's turned on that since they're the only.
Everyone
ones
else tries to do it. No one else can do it.
No
So they just happen to be good at it. What do you want from them?
Right. But on that note, everything I just said, they run the ball really well. They have 2 serviceable running backs that can get yards, and he runs it really well. Yet their wide receiver freaks the F out when they're up 17-10 going into the second half every week.
Right.
And they have to force the ball to him 3 plays in a row just to make him happy. And then, by the way, he's had some big drops the last month or so. So I think they're all starting to feel it because they can't play the same way that they started the season out with, and they're going against these elite teams.
This is the other thing, too. Like, last year after the Super Bowl, they blamed Jonathan Gannon.
That's right.
Blame
yeah,
him.
right.
Their defense is way worse this year.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, not close. Way worse. Mm-hmm. And I'm not trying to give this guy credit, but I mean, come on. And I agreed, like, their defense played really poorly, like last year in the Super Bowl at the worst time. And they also lost their offensive coordinator. I said this at the beginning of the year. I go, the reason why I'm picking Dallas to win the division is because what team changes both coordinators and nothing changes for them?
Yep.
Give me a break. And here they are in the middle of the season. At the beginning of the year, it was the offense isn't running right. They're winning, but they're 10-0, and their best receiver, who's having an MVP season, is freaking out on them.
Yep.
That doesn't make any sense. And here's the other thing. Hurts is hurt.
Yep.
And has been the whole year, and it's obvious.
Yeah.
It was obvious when we played him weeks ago. I give him credit. The dude's a gamer. He's playing through all of this stuff. He was sick last night, so that's different. But his knees are messed up. You're going to find out after the year. He's going to have surgery or something because it was obvious early. Go watch him. He doesn't take any hits. He protects himself. He goes down. He's not running particularly fast. He gives it all on these pushes and everything, and I'm sure that's not fun. But like all the other stuff, he gives himself up. He doesn't want to take any hits. He's limited.
Yep.
I know it when I see it. He's hurt. He's playing through it hurt. He has to get through this season hurt. And they're still 10-4, and these people are just, they won't give him a break. It's crazy.
It was really apparent last night, too, because he was there were a couple scrambles where, like, he was running right towards the sidelines, had one guy. Yeah. Almost any running quarterback now knows you can try to juke the one guy and get an extra 5. No. He was just taking the 5 and then going.
I think one of his knees is a little.
It's the one with the brace
up.
on it. Yeah. It's one that's screwed up. So
he's been hurt all year. He's been managing it all year. He doesn't take hits. He gives himself up. Yeah. There was early with the offense. There was a lot of. I remember when we played him the first time. There's a lot of indecision with him. Yeah. And I remember going into it going, if you could just get him to move a little bit. Actually, he's not running anymore. He's probably hurt. And he's making mistakes, and he's also just a little late, getting rid of the ball. And I think he's injured. Yeah. And so there was indecision on offense. The other offense is average, which is weird with the line that they have more than anything. The line that they have, it's a Hall of Fame line that they have. It's weird that they're not scoring at the clip that they used to. And defensively, clearly, they're messed up. And so much so that they changed defensive coordinators without announcing it.
Right. Exactly.
So they're losing their cookies.
By the way,
it does feel like they're going to fall apart. But I don't put it past them to turn it around. These next 3 games read like they're going to win them. And then that means they're going to win the division, which means they've got at least one home playoff game.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, like, come on. Yeah. Like, what are we talking about here?
And
they're going to play the Falcons or somebody like that in the playoffs, and they're going to kill them.
On their offensive line, how are they not calling Lane Johnson on these stupid pre-snap step backs?
I talked to Rivera about this. 2 years running.
It's getting worse, though. It's getting worse.
I said it to him.
There's one last night where he took a step back and had the chance to stop.
Rivera is on the competition committee.
Yeah.
I hope he doesn't mind I talked to him. But I asked him when we played them earlier this year, because this has been going on for 3 years with this, where they take this elongated jumps the snap step. Both tackles do it. And I'm no coach here, but here's what I would do. Like, honestly, I would tell my ends when they do that.
You jump.
Tag him on the inside shoulder and make him feel it.
Right.
Even if it hurts you for a play or two, make them, because they're off balance when they do this.
Right.
So make them pay for doing something. If they're going to do it every time they're passing, hit them.
Yep.
Just hit them on that off shoulder so they stop get them to think about it and stop doing it. But I'm with you. I asked Rivera about that because I'm like, it looks like a false start 10 times a game.
Yeah, exactly.
And he said, we've talked about it and everyone knows it. He goes, what the referees won't call it because it's so close to the snap of the ball and they're just taking a giant step back that it's on the borderline of being illegal. We had another one last night. I'll give it to them. They figure out little things. They got called for a false start,
the Kelsey one? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
He's been doing this apparently. I haven't noticed it, but now that people have pointed it out, he's been doing it for years where he moves the ball forward.
Yeah, he's not the only one that does that, though. I mean, that's every center in the league, but he's so prominent.
I remember when I talked to Rivera, I'm like, do you ever flag to the referees they're making these jumps to try to get a call against it? And then obviously Seattle said something to the referees because they were waiting for it and called it. And they got it right. He's not supposed to do that.
Correct.
So their little cheat mode things are getting caught up to a little bit. There's still no answer for this tush-push thing.
Of course not.
But that's fine. That's execution. They execute it better. Everyone else could do it. No one else could do it like them, so good on them. That's how I feel about that one. Like, don't make it illegal because they happen to be good at it. In a year when Jason Kelsey retires, they won't be good at it again.
Right.
That's the reality of it. Like, they won't be.
That one was more funny, though, because clearly the league probably just doesn't care when it's in between the 20s. But when you are literally 3 yards away from the end zone and you move it half a yard, you should get flagged for it.
You should get flagged for it.
And I get it. Everyone has – this is football.
He admitted he'd been warned about this a million times, too.
Right.
But until you call it,
correct.
You just do it until you stop getting away with it.
And
that's
not unlike that jump start for Lane Johnson and the other tackle. With those guys, this is football. There's gamesmanship stuff that you can get away with. That this has been in the game forever, where coaches figure something out that you can cheat a little bit. But that's one where moving the ball.
I don't have a problem if you're
getting
getting away with it. The same thing with the elongated step back. I've been talking about this for 2 years. I'm like, they do this. Yeah. They jump the snap. They need to get penalized for it, but they don't. And that's why I'm like, well, if you're not going to get penalized for it, then you need to make those tackles pay for doing that. Right. Even if it hurts you for a play or two. They're off balance now. Hit that opposite shoulder and make them feel it and make them think about it. Like doing things like that. Anyway, all right. So that's the Eagles. They'll be fine if they don't lose it. They just need to keep it together, guys. This is Will Ferrell.
Doesn't feel like they are.
This is what keep it together, guys. And they don't seem like they are. I've never seen a 10-4 team like this. Like just totally losing their cookies.
Right, exactly.
Like they're clearly going to be in the playoffs. They're probably going to win the division, which means they're literally a step away from the Super Bowl again, and they're acting like the world is falling up there.
That's right.
Crazy. All right. Everybody knew this had to happen. Aaron Rodgers finally admitted today that he's not playing.
Before you jump in, Drew Lock, by the way, last night.
That interview was great.
Was fantastic.
The interview was great.
That was
very
so
honest.
Good.
I know if you haven't seen it, I'm not going to play it, but if you haven't seen it, he's just very honest. Like, I've been benched and traded, and I didn't know if I'd ever get to do this again. And I had a moment I'm never going to forget. And it was really, and he was about to cry on the air. I mean,
and then in the post-game conference, he went even a step further and went on and on and on about Geno, about how Geno hyped him up all week, told him everything he needed to know, that he was a good teammate. He said, I feel so comfortable in that room with him there. Say what you want about Carroll. He clearly knows how to build a roster from a chemistry standpoint. That's the one thing that they've never had a problem with, minus Russ, funny enough. But
Geno's been in Drew Lock's shoes for 10 years.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And probably, I appreciate he's a good teammate.
Yeah.
He's going, you know what? I'm not playing tonight for whatever reasons. I'm not going to go heel now and be like, I deserve something. Plus, he got a nice contract last year, so he probably feels differently.
But after the touchdown,
if he didn't get paid last year, he probably feel a little differently about it.
After he threw the touchdown and Locke starts freaking out, it was like, yeah, you've been holding that one in for a while. It was so good. But
he's been waiting.
Sorry to interrupt on that one.
As for Aaron Rodgers, okay, from the who didn't know this was going to happen, and now it's easy to say this because they're not in the playoffs. Like the Commanders, they've been eliminated.
Yep.
So there's really no reason. At least better judgment has come over him, and his mission of proving all scientists wrong is now makes no sense to do that. And I'm sure someone at least got to him and said, don't do this. He went on McAfee today, and he clarified he's not playing again this year.
I've been progressing steadily. Once I was able to start jogging on the Alter G at about between the 8th and 9th week, things have progressed pretty good. I came out here right before Thanksgiving, continued my rehab, and was able to get on the practice field in a limited fashion the last 3 weeks. Most of my stuff has been, like you've seen, kind of thrown on the side, individual work. This last week I took QB Center Exchange. I did some stuff with the running backs. I've been doing the 7-on-7 flight school, which is basically 2s and 3s, P-squad guys that I've asked to do at the end of the day. So that's been fun to do that. Didn't do any 11-on-11 stuff. I think the whole time it's been, hoping that we're still in it because it was unrealistic to think that I would be 100% to be medically cleared at any point during the regular season. I do feel like in the next 3 to 4 weeks, it would be very possible to get to 100%. But obviously not there. And so the conversation was away from 100% medical clearance to a willingness to play. And that's never been a problem for me.
Okay. So he finally admitted the science part of it, which is, and this is what I was saying from the get-go, when everybody kept saying he's going to come back. I'm like, no, he's not, because no one has done that before. And I'm all for making the impossible possible. But I've been around pro sports too long. And I'm actually, for the Jets, this is better off long-term that they got eliminated, because I have a feeling he might have tried to. He's basically saying that. I would have tried to do it, even if it was not in my better judgment.
Correct.
And then what? What if he gets hurt again?
That's right.
And then he ruins his career to play for a team that was, 6-8 instead of 5-9 or whatever they are. And then what? And then the investment they made in him completely goes bust. And I was saying for weeks, the Jets need to be in charge here. It's your decision to make. You don't let him dictate this. And I think that they are somewhat fortunate that they're out of it, because it sounds like he's even admitting, had we been in it, I might have done it, even though I'm admitting now I am not 100% like I tried to pretend I was going to be. Every doctor I talked to doctors on the Commanders, I talked to doctors outside, all of them were like, he's crazy if he does this. And I'm glad he said 100 medically clear is not 100%. Correct. Like, for many people who have this injury who don't play professional sports, you can get back to pretty much normal in this period of time. But not when you're running away from Daron Payne. Yeah. Are you out of your mind? Are you out of your mind?
Right.
So I'm glad he has come to terms with that there are scientific fact that still exists in the world, and that he doesn't have to, because I felt like all along he was doing this to prove everybody wrong.
Correct.
He was proving science wrong, which is the wrong motivation here.
That's right.
Total wrong motivation.
Here's the other good part. I like the silver lining here for the Jets is this guy was so motivated, he probably destroyed his rehab in a way they probably haven't seen, which means he should be good to go for the offseason. Like, the Achilles injury should be like a year. Like, that's not an unrealistic thing anymore. To even with the best of the best, being out a year for an Achilles is not shocking. But the fact that he is already, as he said, practicing with the 2s and 3s and out there on the field, if you're the Jets, you have to actually be feeling really, really good about this going into the offseason, of saying, you know what, we get to spend another offseason hyping up that you're coming back. They get to run back all of the PR that
Hard Knocks 2, baby. Hard Knocks 2, player.
They're not doing that.
Come on.
You can't do it.
Might.
What is it, 10 years, though?
He seemed to actually like it.
Yeah, he did. He did. They clearly either paid him or brought in, what's his name? The voice actor.
Liv Schreiber.
Yeah, I think that was
he said, I'll do it, but I get to meet him.
I think that was the
and
exchange.
In episode 1, they flew him in
a helicopter over for the practice field.
But he even voiceovered I didn't ask for that part of it. They
Correct.
did that for TV.
So there you go. Like, I think that was easily the if I'm going to do this, you're going to bring him in. And that's exactly what happened. But
I think my favorite part was he kept pointing at him and no player knew who he was.
Like, don't you know who that is? Voice of God.
Yeah,
You're like, Zach Wilson's like, I have no idea, bro.
I don't know, man. I'm chilling with my mom and her friends.
That's a 40-year-old quarterback on a bunch of 20-year-olds. That's what that is. But on that too, with Rodgers too, did you hear him say today, like, he was trying to pull the Brady of like, oh, I think I've got a lot more years left in me. Like, he was basically just saying.
And that's fine, and that's good for the league, honestly. Right. It is. It's good for the league. When this happened in week 1 and people were, like, making fun of it, I'm like, this isn't good for the league. You don't want all-time players. However you think about what he talks about and all the stuff he talks about, which I don't like, he still is an all-time great player. And he went to the Jets, and they've done nothing in forever. This was good for the league to have this happen, and it sucks that he got hurt. So I hope he does come back, and I hope he is himself. And there's no guarantee of that. I mean, this is the other thing. Like, I didn't want him to rush back because I'm like, he's going to ruin it for years future. Take it off. Like, I kept feeling like this is a game to try to keep his team involved. And if that's what he was doing, then he was doing a nice service for his team to keep them motivated. Now that they're out, this is the easy way out to say, I'm not going to do this. And he never was going to be able to.
Right.
And he basically admitted that. He was like, even if even I need another month, which puts them in the playoffs, which I'm not even sure by league rules he'd be allowed to come back at that point. Like, you have to open a window. Well, I guess they could have put him on the active roster and not played him. That could have happened.
That could have happened.
They could have put him on the active roster and not played him. They could have done that.
I think on that note, though, of him saying, oh, I've got a bunch of years left, I think you might see the old restructure extend in the offseason, because they might.
I would not do that if I were them. I would want to, if you're smart about this, let me see what you look like next year.
Here's the thing.
Because we want you to be here for 5 years, but dude, you just had an Achilles tear at 40. We can't give you a ton of money.
But if he does the lower the cap number, extend it out, they can add more weapons again, which
Maybe.
I think is not the worst gamble in the world. Is what I'm getting at here.
Yeah, maybe.
You're already gambling with this guy regardless, so you might as well go all in with it right now. It's not like you're giving up draft picks; you're giving up cap space. Like I would.
They're gonna have a high pick now,
Yeah.
and there's 2 great tackles coming
Right,
out. Go get
right.
one of them.
Yep. No,
That's
100%.
really what they need to do.
Yeah.
Go get a great tackle.
Yeah.
Help him out a little bit here.
Right.
Okay, let me take a quick break. Bram watch the show. ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Merry Christmas to all the Orioles fans. They finally got a lease deal done.
That's right.
The faux lease deal that was celebrated in the summer that wasn't actually a deal.
The mission accomplished deal.
Mission accomplished deal has turned out to be true. They do have one now for 30 years, so we will lock the team in. I'll talk about some of the details are coming out about what's going to happen to Camden Yards in a minute. But the good news is they're not going to Nashville. That was
Correct.
blocked.
Yes.
You know, Major League Baseball got in the way of that one, which was good. And they shouldn't go anywhere. They have a gem of a ballpark and an incredible fan base. You don't move a team like that out. So I'm glad that baseball stepped in and didn't let them become the A's.
That was literally the one thing I had said the whole entire time. You know, this all ends when if Rob actually is paying attention and just says, we're not letting that happen. And he did. And then OG, the lease came to be. Like,
Yes.
I'm just.
He took all the leverage out of them.
Yes, correct. Exactly.
Angelos is probably like, come on, man. You know,
Right.
and he's like, you're not moving them. And it probably partially was, we don't trust that you won't try to do it.
That's right.
Which is what
Right.
I was saying all along. I do not trust that they will not try to really actually do that.
Right.
This isn't moving to Alexandria, guys. Okay?
Correct.
This is different thing.
It's also, we're seeing this in sports now a little bit more too, where you cannot move these historic franchises from where they're at. We saw it with the Raiders, unfortunately, but that was terrible stadium, could never get a deal done. We also just knew a team was going to go to the NFL, and the NFL is not expanding either. So that was moving a brand there, but it's not really happening anymore in sports of these historic franchises moving. I guess the A's actually are historic. They're very historic, but you're seeing it where like nobody blinks an eye when the Thrashers move from Atlanta to Winnipeg. Like, you have to be one of those clubs to make it easier. You're not moving the Orioles to freaking Nashville with their history.
And not out of that
they have
stadium.
They have
Come on.
literally the last modern great position player.
The A's biggest, there's 2 issues. I mean, Oakland as a market,
Yes,
unfortunately.
correct. Yeah.
But really the bigger issue was that stadium was such a wreck
Yeah.
that they had to do something about it. And I don't know enough to really comment on it. I still think it's terrible they moved that team out. But like, still, I mean, there were rats living in that stadium out there. I mean,
Raccoons and cats.
I know, it was terrible. Cats. Yeah. Cats.
Cats. They had feral cats.
All right. So that's the good news. They're staying. Then a second thing happened. They did settle once again with the Nationals what is owed.
Yep.
Right. And this has been in the courts for a while over the MASN split that has been, there's
This
been a
one-
disagreement of who owes what, for a long time. And at least that's settled again.
Correct. This one wasn't in the courts as long as the last one. This one, though, they are all court-based is the number always at. So they have to do this for like each piece of time. So
But
this
they're
is a
moving
3-year.
quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Which means they're more close than what they
The
agree
first one
on,
was
so.
settled,
Yeah.
and basically whoever the next arbitrator is going to go, we're going to work off of that.
Right, correct.
And so we don't need to, and it's not worth the legal fees to keep fighting. But
Yes.
I do think it's notable these 2 things happened at the same time. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you why. They're selling the team.
Of course. Yeah.
That's
absolutely.
why.
Yeah.
We're clearing the decks to sell the team. Their future is now secure in Baltimore. We now know. We now also know what the city is going to be willing to do to help renovate it. And then we now know what the team owes the Nationals in terms of all this money.
Yep.
I still think the biggest holdup is going to ultimately be, can they extricate from the MASN deal in general, which isn't part of all of this, and give the Nationals full control of their broadcasting rights in whatever form that's going to come in the future. And that's not there yet. But the fact that these 2 things happened, I am going to prognosticate that by spring training we hear about a sale of the Baltimore Orioles to somebody.
Right.
And in all likelihood, it's David Rubenstein, who was connected to Ted Leonsis. This would make a lot of sense because if nothing else, Ted's going to get the Nationals. I think we all know this. Like, it's at some point when the Lerner family decides to actually sell the team, and that probably does come down to how do we get out of the MASN deal? And maybe if Rubenstein takes over and he's an ally of Leonsis,
Right, yeah.
they figure that out.
Yep.
And then at that point, the learners will get the price that they want. Ted will give it to them. They will then sell. This is what I think is all good. These are the dominoes that I think are going to happen.
Yeah.
The Orioles, I bet, are sold or have a principled agreement probably by the spring. Not unlike Daniel Snyder, it's probably not going to be the easy out because that family is very litigious and they've been difficult to deal with. So however you think it's going to go, ask Josh Harris about this. He had to manage that relationship to ultimately make it happen. So it's not going to be easy. But what you're seeing here is now we know they're not moving. Now that we know what their value is, now that we know what their liability is in broadcasting rights, all of that is set up for who's going to buy the team, and it's going to happen. So I bet by spring training, we hear that there's a deal in principle, and probably with David Rubenstein. And that's good for everybody because if that happens, I don't know whether he'd be a good owner or not, but if that does happen, it does then open the door for Ted to approach the learners again.
Right.
And they'll probably, if the learners still want to sell the team, which we don't actually know
Yep, right.
whether they want to or not. Maybe they've changed their minds. Maybe they have. Either way, this is going to clear the roadway for a more bright future for both of the organizations, and hopefully the MASN stuff will get settled. But the fact that they're getting through the courts much quicker now, settling what's owed, is good for everybody, and it does scream to me the Orioles will be changing hands next year and probably sooner rather than later.
And the other part about this that I keep saying is Rubenstein has a financial show on Bloomberg, and Bloomberg is the one that reported it. So when the Orioles were saying that it's not true, that's not the Washington Post or the Wall Street Journal or just a random outlet. That's the literal organization that he works with. So they got a scoop, and those dots are way too close to not be connected on that one. So
also, and I say this lightly because we're a partner with this team.
Yep.
But John Angelos has publicly stated things that turned out to not to be true.
That's true.
Many times.
100%. Yeah.
And that's just fact.
Yeah.
So him saying this isn't happening or all that, I don't believe you.
Right.
And whether it's David Rubenstein or a different group,
Yeah.
I think they are selling the team. I mean, we've all kind of known this was happening no matter what. The whole thing was they were waiting for Peter Angelos to pass because then the will would, turn the trust into what. Remember, they were infighting with who has what and who has what control. That was going on with that family for a while, and I don't know enough about what's going on with the family to understand it, but it does read like this is going to happen, and it's going to happen, I think, pretty soon and on an expedited timeline. And then that will open the door for what does happen with the Nationals. And because the learners don't speak to the media, I don't think we know. Do they want to sell the team still like it's appeared like they wanted to in the past? Maybe.
Right.
Maybe they don't. Maybe they'll tell us. Maybe they won't. But I do believe at least now the pathway to that happening, I don't know how you feel about that because I don't think that they've been bad owners. I haven't liked what they've done in recent years with some of the star players, and I've yelled and screamed about that. But I wouldn't describe them. I don't describe them as bad owners, partially because they redeveloped a part of the city.
Sure.
Not unlike everyone's really mad at Ted for vacating Washington, D.C. and leaving this from behind. That family, not unlike Abe Pollin, redeveloped a part of the city that was basically vacant and barren.
Correct.
And now it's a vibrant area of town. And I really applaud them for doing that, let alone get a World Series here.
So much so that the soccer team plays over there, and the city even offered up to the Commanders across the river for another stadium. That was going to be just a stadium, though.
That's
and
right.
that's why I got kind of shuffled. But so much so that it literally has changed the actual landscape of what the city can do, right? I've loved them as owners, and you always make fun of me how I'm a Nats loyalist, but it's because
trust me, I got my beefs with them.
Sure,
but I think largely on the plus-minus scale, I think they've taken a little more heat than probably deserved.
Correct.
Although in recent years, I do not like what they've done with the stars of this team
at
all.
But I think what the learners do is they do something that is hard to do. They make the tough decisions and then stand behind them. And a lot of times they actually are more right than they are wrong on it. And that's why I have always kind of just... They're the one team where when they make a move, I go, I can't really react to it because they actually are usually right about these things. Or at the bare minimum, they go, it's Mike Rizzo's decision. We just have to sign off on it. And it's one direction. Like it's one guy making the majority of the decision.
I mean, in this, why I'm really upset here is in this particular case, we lost these stars in the primes of their career. In the case of Harper, Soto, and Turner, we lost them in the primes of their career. And secondarily, the returns so far do not scream turnaround.
Sure.
So, if you're going to do something like that, it is to build up the new, young, great team. And I haven't seen that yet. I'm open to I know they have some young guys that are about to approach the major league field, and I'm open to the idea that they will be better. But what I see out there right now is not the burgeoning makings of overtaking the Braves at all.
Sure.
At all.
But no one said the rebuild's going to take 2 years. They said probably 4 to 5 is probably a better realistic thing. You're also shuffling that they did win a championship with that core that they did get rid of. So I'm just saying, like, it did pay dividends for them that they won one at the end of that run with them. The other thing, too, is we've seen it, though. When they actually get that kind of shell of a team in place, they spend. Like, that's the other thing I actually like about the Loners. They have not hesitated.
Have in the past.
Yeah, right.
Again.
Right, but
past returns do not indicate what they will do in the future.
Sure,
so we don't know.
But every single year that they were competitive, they added a piece. So like when they let guys like Ian Desmond and Jordan Zimmerman go, there was another person they would usually sign on with, and it tended to work. They signed Max Scherzer. They signed Daniel Murphy for that amazing 2-year run. Like, they signed guys and actually seemingly help put the team together. So that's all I'm saying with them owning the team. I will say this, and I don't mind saying this out loud. I worry about Ted getting them because I think that's a lot on his plate. That is a lot on his plate with having the Capitals, who are about to go through their biggest transformation from one era to the next, the Wizards, who seemingly just are scuffling along and shuffling along, and then you're asking him to kind of rubber stamp a rebuild for a baseball team that we've never seen him work with a baseball team. That's a lot of teams that you got to worry about. And like with Ted, he likes to be involved. So it's like
he's allowed his front offices to make decisions.
No, I know, but he
like
does.
The Capitals front offices make their decisions.
Correct.
The Wizards front offices, it's a criticism of him, has allowed them to make some decisions along the way, whether it was Ernie or Tommy, that I think a lot of us were like, what are you doing?
Right. But I also look at that and I worry a little bit because you've let Rizzo handle this rebuild, and he probably deserves at least 1 to 2 years more to see it through. Does he kind of put the hit the ejection button on him? Like, I would hope he doesn't, but you just don't know that. And I just think not only stretched thin, it also all of a sudden you're kind of like, you just moved 2 teams out of the area. Like, what are you going to do with that? With your baseball team. Like, I would think they're not going to move out of Nats Park, but all of a sudden you can't.
I will take RFK.
All of a sudden you can't rule any of that out because he literally just did it with 2 other teams. So as a baseball fan that loves going to games down there, even when they suck, that worries me. And that's it. I'm not saying, I'm not being overly critical here, but he's done it with 2 other teams or wants to do it with 2 other teams. It worries me that he'd want to move them across the river. So
back to the lease agreement for a moment.
Yep.
There are a couple of things that have trickled out in reporting about what is going to happen to Camden Yards. One of them is a number of upper deck seats are probably going to be removed for what they're calling social spaces.
Good.
Yeah. I agree. They're unnecessary.
They didn't even sell those tickets last year until the playoffs. Like literally, you could not buy them. They didn't open up the concourse.
The crowds don't. The support doesn't warrant these size stadiums anymore.
Correct.
Maybe in a few markets, but not in most. And they're one of them.
Yeah.
So good. I know it's not a great sign, but it's good. Right.
Yes.
They're going to move the press box apparently, which for all of us that go there, and I haven't been in the press box there in a long time. I haven't covered an Orioles game in a very long time, but it is a really nice one. That's sad.
It's one of the best ones.
I know, but it's in prime position, so I get it. It's like literally behind home plate.
That apparently is going to be a restaurant / other area, which makes sense because I think they got rid of the restaurant out on Utah Street for the sports book. So it means that's one thing they were probably always gonna move around.
And then I forgot about this, but this guy replied to a couple stories about the lease agreement and wrote this. This guy Kevin wrote on Twitter. So maybe now Baltimore can get the All-Star game back since it's been 3 decades.
That's right. Correct. Yeah. They have not had it since it opened. Yeah.
All right. So maybe they can get that back. That'd be nice.
Well, remember the league was
great
also
venue for it.
Well, remember the league was also dangling it in front of them of, hey, if you let the MASN deal go, we'll give you the All-Star game. And even the Angeloses were like, no. Why would we do that? We're making so much money off this deal. An All-Star game does not fix that. So, yeah.
Home run derby with the warehouses.
We should have had 2 of them
Uh-huh.
from the last time. I think they were 92 or 93 when they played here. So yeah,
back. Come on now. All right, let me take a quick break. Bram watches the show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. Mark tweets in, the Angelos family are waiting for Peter to pass before selling the team due to penalties based on an estate tax, which would be a loss in excess of $200 million. So that makes a lot of sense. Thank you for pointing that out. So I think whenever that day comes, I think it's going to happen. I feel like the stage has now been set for the sale will occur.
Yeah, you can set all this up.
They're staying in Baltimore, which is the good news.
Right. You can set all this up, for when it happens, that it happens fast. So
that's right.
That's probably what's happening here is the ball is starting to roll.
Let's see. Old Dominion blew their bowl game yesterday. They were up 28-0 and lost 38-35. Our friend Scott Jackson, who does the post-game show for the Commanders games, called that. He didn't do the post-game show this past week because he was in for the Bahamas Bowl in Charlotte. And they blew that. So I can't wait now to just rib him so hard that he had to call them blowing a 28-point lead. Jack went to ODU. Is the voice on TV of their basketball team and is on daily down in Norfolk now. So this must have been a disaster.
I'm going to be honest here. Like, I didn't even know what ODU was until I met Jack because all those years ago, they weren't good at anything. And now they're, not a powerhouse, but one of the best teams in Virginia these days. And
you know who their basketball team's coached by?
I don't.
Jeff Jones.
Oh.
Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
That's right.
Okay. All right.
Jeff Jones.
But here it is. Like, I only ever heard of ODU because of Jack, because he was always waving the flag for them.
That's right. I can't say it. I don't. I can't say what Jack would say.
Listen.
All right. Speaking of bowl games, Taulia has announced today he will not play, or Maryland announced today that Taulia Tagovailoa is not going to play in Maryland's bowl game in Nashville against Auburn. And because he's getting set for the draft. Many players do this. They don't play in this game. All right. In his particular case, I agree and disagree with him in doing this.
Yeah.
One, he's not a first-round pick. Sorry.
Right.
He's not a second-round pick, in my opinion.
Right.
I think he will get drafted, and I think it will be late. That's what I think.
Someone's going to take a flyer on him. Yeah, absolutely.
He's got prolific numbers, got the right last name. I think he's going to get picked, right? So I think that's going to happen. But I can see two sides to this one for him particularly. One, he plays really well against an SEC defense. That actually might help him.
That's true.
But he's not going to do that. I'm assuming he's going to show up to the Senior Bowl, and because he's eligible for that. Because why else wouldn't he? Because he's not going to be a first or a second round pick. Why else wouldn't he to try to do that there? So I would want to ask him, do you think you get better potential pre-draft notoriety by either beating Auburn in a bowl game or showing up to the Senior Bowl and performing well there? And I'd like to hear I'll hang up and listen to his answer on that one, because there is part of me that goes, if you do in this particular case, because you're playing an SEC team, I actually think, and I know they're not Alabama or Georgia this year, but that's an SEC team,
right,
that going out there and lighting that team up might help you.
I
and
agree.
Choosing not to do it, I understand why. And also, he plays where he gets hurt every other game. It's the way he plays. And there is part of me that goes, he knows himself well enough not to put himself at risk before the draft.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I see it from that point of view. I also think when you're one of these mid-round guys that, like, outside of a guy like Sam Howell, right, who was, like, touted as a first-round pick, then dropped, but he was still one of the top quarterbacks in that draft. It was just a
Taulia's not that.
Taulia's not that.
No,
That's what I'm getting at here.
Not.
Like, you're better off.
You have to try. No offense. He's not. Trust me on this. I've covered the NFL for a long time. He's not.
Right. And so I do think you also hyped it up this year as, like, here's your senior quarterback, elder statesman, going to do some things.
Yeah, I bought into that.
Yeah, you did. I stood strong. You leaned into all of that, and you never quite looked that part the entire season, essentially. In fact, made mistakes in games that tilted the games a lot of times as well. So I would just say, wouldn't you want to give it one more shot to look good and go out on top? Like, I feel like that's what you should do. But then again, I hear it. If you're a fifth-round pick or whatever and you're expecting to get a contract like that, I guess it's not worth playing in. So
it'd be interesting if the Dolphins drafted him in the 6th or 7th round and try to develop him as a backup to Tua.
Yeah, I mean,
that'd be interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
be a good story.
We're gonna see some team from all teams from all records take a flyer on all of these guys. This always happens every year.
He'll get drafted.
So, yeah.
I believe he'll get drafted. It's not going to be very high, and I don't have a strong feeling that he's going to be
New Commanders GM drafts him in the 5th round or 6th round.
Shut your mouth. Let's see.
They take Caleb Williams and Taulia.
Get to that at the top of the hour, by the way. Nick Saban was asked today, are you worried that Michigan will steal your signs? That was a very funny question.
That's funny.
That's a good question.
Did he answer it?
I think he did.
Shuffled it under the rug.
Probably.
Yeah.
I think he understood the joke behind all that.
Right.
That was pretty good. He's probably like, I hired Connor Stallions. Yeah. That'd be the
it's
best
working for
answer.
me.
He works for me now. And then one other thing. Tonight is the final episode of Real Sports.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That airs tonight. I'm going to watch that because for years, that to me was must-see sports television.
Right.
Not so much in recent years, but it really was that. It was the best magazine show in sports journalism, I think, for a long time running. And it's been going for almost 30 years.
Still HBO?
Still HBO.
Okay.
Final one tonight. So Bryant Gumbel. Let's move on.
That was always.
Let's move on.
We're
We're gonna get one final. Let's move on.
That was always too one of the best things ever because it's when HBO was like the exclusive NFL films. So not only did you get, I forget what was the NFL show on HBO called? Do you remember?
Inside the NFL.
Inside the NFL, but they would also use some
you
of
would be hearing my calls these days
Right.
if it was on there. You
Right.
hear it now on the Inside the NFL version, but they use all the play-by-play.
But they would use that on that show too, and like it wasn't cutting room floor stuff, but it was always stuff you hadn't seen yet before, and like. The kids, it's one of these things. Kids today won't understand. Yeah. NFL films is like the drugs after you've taken the drugs. It was so good. The cameras were so good. The sounds were so good. The mic'd up.
The voiceovers were amazing.
It was fantastic. So I remember watching that on there too.
The voice of God, John Facenda, forever doing that. And then they had Harry Callis for a number of years doing the voiceovers of all of it.
Yes.
And these days I still get a kick. Like if I ever pop on one of those and one of my calls pops up, I think it's really fun to hear that happen. Anyway, it's the last one tonight. I don't know what the stories are, but I really want to see the end because I want to see how they handle the end. I think they'll probably bring back all of the correspondence through the years. They've had luminaries of sports journalism for years doing stories there, like Bernard Goldberg, Mary Carrillo, Andrea Kramer. I know I'm missing names, but they've had. So I want to see how they handle it tonight. It's a death of another sports magazine show because you all like hot takes, you dummies.
Well,
that's what you guys like. You guys want to see Stephen A. Smith put on a hat and make fun of the Cowboys. You want to see Skip Bayless try to figure out something dumb to say about LeBron James. That's what you like, guys. And this is what you get.
I would disagree with you on that. I think people like that show, but I think it's in the wrong place now. Nobody gets nobody buys HBO for sports. Period.
They're trying though. You've seen they've cut deals with like NBA games, so they're trying.
Yeah, you can get it on. There's a few you can actually get on Max for certain sports already now. But either way, for me, it was always kind of lost on. That's great. The production's great, but nobody's buying your services. They just want to watch Game of Thrones.
Yep.
So who's gonna be? I think we're onto something. Who's gonna be the C-SPAN of sports next? Because somebody could do that. Like
C-SPAN of sport, like do the real stories.
Just do journalistic.
The issue
straight down the middle.
The issue is to do it at that way is expensive.
Right.
Where you have to actually hire the film crews, go travel, do the stories. It's expensive, so you have to have the audience for it, and the audience likes first take.
I have an idea here. We live in the right city to put this out on the airwaves. U.S. government. All of these leagues have all these antitrust things where they're not paying the taxes they should be. You should force them. They have to spend a certain amount of money for journalists to cover your sports.
All right, get on that.
And
maybe
do the big
Trump
stories.
will do it. Trump.
I don't think that's going to happen, but
who knows?
I'm just saying.
Not the NFL, though.
To the leagues.
Turncoats.
To the leagues. Drop in the bucket.
Yeah, that's true.
So.
All right, let me take a quick break. Brave watch the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Commanders have a new long snapper. His name is Tucker Addington. So that's the replacement of Cameron Cheeseman. Tucker Addington, sir. It's a great name.
Cheeseman was a great name.
Tucker Addington.
Not unlike a great defenseman in the NHL. If you don't ever call his name, it means he's doing his job.
Tucker Addington seems like the friend of Zach from Wedding Crashers, hanging out at the club.
Who's Zach?
It's what's his name? The very famous Bradley Cooper's character. Oh. It's his friend at the club, and they get on the phone and talk about how they got to get rid of these two guys who have crashed the wedding and are moving in on his fiance.
I forgot he even had a name.
Zach.
He's just Bradley Cooper, and also screams crab cakes in football. That's what Maryland does.
Well, he doesn't scream that.
Oh, it's the brother. It's the brother. You're
he
correct.
doesn't scream that.
But he is playing in the game, though.
He takes it too seriously.
That's right, yes.
And Big Tree fall hard. Hits Vince Vaughn as hard as he possibly can.
Does he do sack lunch? Doesn't he do sack lunch?
No, that's the other guy as well.
Too?
Sack lunch. The other guy.
Clearly haven't watched the movie in a long time.
Has no real role in this movie other than sack lunch and crab cakes and football. That's what Maryland does.
That's two great lines, though.
It is two great lines.
He shouldn't have to buy a drink.
He pulls them off.
Yeah, shouldn't have to buy a drink in this state.
Yeah. Yeah, no.
Sack lunch. No.
Yeah, it's an amazing line. He got the amazing lines. He's like Creed from The Office. You get a couple amazing lines. That's it.
Might make you feel old. First movie I ever snuck into because it was rated R and I wasn't 18.
You crashed Wedding Crashers.
That's right.
How about that?
Uh-huh. Yes. At the old Olney 9, which doesn't exist anymore in Olney.
I have these dreams of these stupid ideas all the time where I'd like to get an old theater and play all these old movies all the time, but I don't think anyone would show up to
It
them.
already exists, bro. It's in Silver Spring.
What's it called?
It's AFI Silver.
What do they show, though? Do
just
they
old
show
movies.
Wedding Crashers?
Hold on.
Do they
Hold
show Big Lebowski?
Mm-hmm. They do that. Let's see. AFI Silver.
Do they show Airplane? I want Airplane on the big screen. Do
their
they do that?
show times right now. Hold on.
Like, I want to show Goodfellas once a year.
Yeah, like right now, today, you could go to Silver Spring at 9:45. They're playing Bad Santa, underrated Christmas movie.
Yeah, that's a good one.
9:20, you could go see Trading Places.
Oh, wow. All right, so this is done.
Yeah.
Okay, forget it. Forget it. Done.
Tomorrow, you could go see Die Hard.
Oh, that's a great one to see on the big screen.
Elf.
Oh.
It's a Wonderful Life. Clearly, these are all Christmas movies. Love Actually, Muppet Christmas Carol. Let's see what else.
But will
we
they
got.
play Kentucky Fried Movie? Will they do that? See, I'll do that.
That I don't know.
Yeah, I'll do that one.
Let's see, anything special for Friday? Doesn't look like it. Winter, but every night, every day, it seems like they're playing Die Hard at least once, Elf once, Muppet Christmas.
How about Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle?
They might have that too. They might have that too.
I'd play that at my weird theater.
I believe they were one of the theaters too. In full Monty Python fashion, it was like the 48.5 anniversary. And they decided to bring it back in theaters for 2 nights. I think they were
Monty Python?
Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah. So it already exists. So,
But my place would be a dump though. Their place is probably nice.
old movie theaters can't wash
Silver
that
Theater?
grease off. I don't know. I'm just saying. Those places.
You haven't been in the Silver Theater then for a long time. It's nice.
Okay. All right.
Nicer.
Okay.
Smallish. All
Fair
right.
enough.
Anyway, Seth Walder, analytics guy from ESPN, says if the Commanders lose out, 81% they're picking top 3, 33% they're picking number 2, and 3% they'd get to number 1 because they'd need the Panthers to win twice down the stretch here for that to happen.
We can't send Ron down there. Ron, coach him up.
I think it's going to happen. Yeah, it's not going to happen. But there you go, top 3. So now we need to start having this question.
Hold on
say.
before you get into this.
Oh, you want to see who they're playing? Just to see if it's possible?
They host the Packers this weekend.
It's a possibility. It is.
No.
I know.
Then they're
It's a
at
possibility.
Jags. Jags will have to have that win. They're going to be so desperate to win that.
It should be a loss. Yeah,
And then they're hosting the Bucks.
And the Buccaneers will be playing for the division, probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
But if the Bucks lock the division up, that's 1. And they rest Baker.
If they knock off the Packers, your boy LaFleur is going to hear it. The Zabe train's going to be going choo-choo. Choo-choo, Zabe
Everything
train.
was so good for like 3
After
weeks.
perfect passer rating from Baker, if they were to lose to the Panthers,
That's true. Yeah.
now
So they're not going to win another
your guy
game.
LaFleur is going to be in trouble after that one.
They're not going to win another game.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're not getting number 1. But we might get number 2.
Right.
It's a possibility. Still number 3. All right. Where I'm going with this is I think
Here we go, Jim.
we're all aware that, aren't we, that if they get the second overall pick, that they're taking a quarterback, correct?
I think you kind of have to.
Whether it's Caleb Williams or Drake May.
Correct.
Don't you kind of have to?
Right.
Maybe there will be some buzz that the LSU guy goes above one of those other 2. I actually doubt that, but maybe. Possibility.
Right. I mean, either way, though, you're in the situation, not nearly like this, but you're in the situation of like Luck RG3. There are 2 can't-miss quarterbacks. If you take one
Feels
of
that
them,
way.
nobody will be mad that you took one of those 2. We are also in the situation here where this is modern NFL. When you have a chance to take one of these guys and you don't know if you have one, you take them. You have to. Like you're not going to suck enough again to probably get one.
I'm glad you're saying this because all I've heard, and I talked about this yesterday a lot, is Sam Howell the guy conversation.
Sure.
And whether you think he is or he isn't, you at least are asking the question over and over because you're not sure.
Right.
So if they end up with the second overall pick, I think they need to take a quarterback, period.
Sure.
One of those 2, period. Like, when you're asking this question over and over, you don't know the answer to it. And
Right.
if you don't know the answer to it, then, well, what are you going to do if you're sitting in that spot? So I've landed on, if they end up with the second overall pick, I'm taking a quarterback and I'm not looking back. And, Sam Howell might be the primary backup on this team next year, and he may not. Now, if we're at number 3, and let's assume that 1 and 2 are Williams and May to whoever, and we didn't trade up for it, which I do think would be a possibility at 3, because if I'm the Bears, okay, And I do love Justin Fields. And I want to play this bite from Jalen Johnson, by the way, because he said something on, I don't remember what show it was. I sent it to you, but I'm going to play this for you in a second.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to play this for you in a second. But if you're the Bears, they're in the same weird situation. They're going to have the number one pick because Carolina forfeited it to them last year in the trade to get Bryce Young. They're going to have the number one pick. They're in the same spot they were in a year ago. Do they move on with Justin Fields or do they take Caleb Williams, right?
Right.
And I don't know what they're going to do. Or they could, do you trade down to Washington at 3 and take Marvin Harrison?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And let them take Caleb Williams. So they're going to be in a very, very, very interesting spot to make that choice. Washington at 3, all bets are off for me. Do you take Harrison? I make a case for it.
Correct.
Albeit we have McLaurin and Dotson, right?
Still,
Same thing here.
Yeah.
Like, he looks like he's going to be a Hall of Fame receiver.
I made this comparison yesterday talking with somebody, and I said, you know what? Like, one of the underrated decisions, he got fired, but when Matt Millen was running the Lions, they had taken like 3 or 4 first-round wide receivers.
They messed up on Charles Rodgers.
But they still,
that was a bust.
But they still took Calvin Johnson because he was the can't-miss wide receiver that dominated.
Correct.
And it's like, sometimes as a team, you need to just take the best player available when you're that high.
Yes.
And they did, and he was the best one out of all of them. So
Yep. The other choice will be at 3, best tackle on the board, and there's going to be 2 of them that are going to go in the top 10, if not top 5.
Yep.
Right? We're going to have 2 quarterbacks go 1-2. Harrison may go 3, at worst 4.
Correct.
It's either going to be this tackle from Notre Dame or Penn State, or it's going to be, I mean, the draft is very obvious right now. There are elite players in the top 5.
Yeah.
You kind of can't go wrong really with any of them. But like, if we're at 3, that's what it is. But I do want to go back to, if we're at 2, I think we're going to stop. This is why I kept saying for weeks, I'm like, what pick do we have and who's making these decisions? Because that's why I can't answer your question, is Sam Howell the guy?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter what I think right now. It's going to depend on circumstances. And if Caleb Williams is on the board, I don't care what you think of Sam Howell. That's who we're taking. No offense to Sam. Like, that's what's going to end up happening here. Of course, that's what's going to end up happening here. But if we're at 3, I don't know. So I want to play this bite from Jalen Johnson, Bears' very good corner, who hasn't gotten paid yet, wants to get paid. Anyway, he went on, I think it's a Chicago show, and they asked him because
Perkins and Spiegel, 670 the score.
Okay, so that's sports radio in Chicago. He goes on with them and was asked about, because clearly they're streaking towards, they're going to be in the same spot they were a year ago.
That's right.
They're going to have the number 1 pick. Do you stick with Fields or do you start over with, take your pick of which one you like better, right? Either way. All right, and this is what he said about it.
He's our quarterback. Like, we believe in Justin. We've seen Justin play at a high level. It's not like we just have a quarterback that we just see and just like, nah, he's not it. Like, no, he's a guy to me that checks a lot of the boxes, and it's just like, we're only going to gel closer together. We're only going to defend him. We're only going to pump him up. We're only going to put what we have into him, because he's our guy. He's the guy in the locker room. He's the guy that makes plays. He's the guy that leads us. He's the guy that take everything on, in a sense, onto the chin. Like, if it's somebody who's going to step up further, say it's his fault, it's him. So, I mean, there's no better, I feel like, reason for us to go to bat with our quarterback than what we have in our locker room and what Justin has done for us and our team. But, I mean, just overall, I mean, we know what the talks are. Of course, the number 1 pick, you normally choose a quarterback. So it's like, yeah, there's talks. Are we just the best team? No. Has he just had his best all-career year? No. So it's like, we know what, in a sense, the talks are. But it's like, as far as bringing it to the locker room, like, man, no. Like, y'all can keep that, in a sense, on Twitter. Keep that on social media. But don't bring that to our locker room and try to project what you guys are thinking on us and trying to create a story. And, oh, okay, well, the guys are – we not feeling like nothing. We feeling like Justin is that guy. So, I mean, that's – I feel like where the frustration comes is, like, outside people trying to project that energy on us or trying to divide us, or, well, how do you feel with the number 1 pick? Like, I don't know. There's very few guys to me in the locker room that maybe shouldn't even be in the locker room if they're going, oh yeah, we should take K. Like, I don't think that's how it goes. But again, I thought our locker room was too tight knit for any of that.
Okay, so like what he's saying there, one is the right thing to say.
Yeah,
you shouldn't say.
Sure,
whatever. But I believe him because he's not the first one to say this. I've heard other Bears players say the exact same thing, where they're saying, we're not moving away. If it's up to us, we're not. He's our guy. We're not moving away from him. You know how I felt about him a year ago when this decision popped up. I went, you want to trade Justin Fields? I'm interested, guys.
Sure.
We're not the only team who's going to be interested. I'm very interested in him. Like, I think he's got a very unique, interesting skill set, modern NFL skill set. I'm all for it. But let's just take this at face value, okay? That these players will have some kind of say in this. And it's hard not to believe that Fields does have a big future. He does. It's going to be a hard decision for them. This is heading towards going to be one of the most unique, and this is a crossroads decision for their franchise. I actually think they did the right thing last year, and it's played out that way. Bryce Young was not the right guy.
That's right. Yeah.
Justin Fields is better than him. Bryce Young may have a nice career, but I think they clearly did, unless they took Stroud, they clearly did the right thing last year. This one's different. These two quarterbacks that are coming out, to me, are much higher prospects. And you get to hit the reset button and all sorts of things that go along with that. Yeah. So I don't know. So I think there's a couple things at play. If we somehow have the number 2 pick, I'm not talking to them. I'm probably going, I'll take either one of these guys, take your pick at who it's going to
That's
be.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
If we have the number 3 pick, I think we're in a weird spot. We might be sending that second round pick back to them.
Correct. We
might be. Because if they come around to the same decision, we want to keep Fields and we're going to get another King's ransom again, and you get a call from the team at number 3, and that means you get Marvin Harrison or the best tackle, but probably Marvin Harrison. Well, that's a pretty darn good outcome to drop down to 3 and take him and get whatever else, probably Washington's first-round pick next year, probably the second-round pick they already traded to you for Montez Sweat. You probably get all that back. I don't know.
I think at first, though, I think you first try to deal with Tepper. I think you try to dangle that second-round pick and go, oh, you're only moving down 2 spots if they're picking at 3. And I think you could probably actually get it done because Tepper's an idiot.
What do you mean?
For if you trade with the Panthers instead of the Bears.
How are you going to trade with the Panthers?
Because Panthers are number 1 overall.
Yeah, but it's the Bears' pick.
Oh, crap, that's right. Yeah.
Totally this is why the Bears are in this decision.
It doesn't matter. That's right.
It doesn't. No, the Bears have the number. The Bears are going to have the number 1 pick.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So they're in a same, but I think more heightened situation.
Yep.
Caleb Williams or Justin Fields, not Bryce Young or Justin Fields. It's a very different. I think they did. I said it last year. I'm like, if you guys are dumb enough to actually trade away Fields and take Bryce Young, call us interested in that one.
Yeah.
But I know you can't be dumb enough to not take Caleb Williams. So what are you going to do? And this one's going to be very, very interesting.
Right.
I think they're going to vet out Williams hard. I think they're going to get a ton of offers for him. But ours, if we're interested in him, is going to be almost too hard to turn down because they're going to fall and get Marvin Harrison.
Right.
That's the worst that's going to happen. And more. Probably another first-round pick.
Yeah.
Maybe that second-round pick or one of the two. Maybe the Washington goes best of the two. Could be theirs.
Right.
It's going to be better than the Bears. So, I don't know.
This is also
I think we're streaking towards this. That's what I think. If we end up with the second pick, well, we'll have to see. But at that point, I'm more willing to go keep our picks, take Drake May, let's move forward here.
Right. The other thing, though, here is I don't know in this ownership group, because let's be real here, the front office is probably going to be flipped. What do they think of Caleb Williams as the new marketing piece over Drake May? Now, I'm with you. They could probably get away with both, but you and I both know you bring the kid that played at Gonzaga to be your new face of the franchise. Could they lose their mind and trade a little bit more to make sure they get that guy if Caleb Williams is the number 1 guy?
I do believe that it's going to be an astronomical offers are going to come to the Bears for him.
Yeah.
This is not Bryce Young. There's going to be astronomical offers for him. I still think it's possible that Drake May is the number 1 quarterback too.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And if you surmise that that's what's going to happen, you may have to sit back and wait as well. The problem is right now 2 is the Patriots, correct?
Yes.
Or the Cardinals. They'll also be in a very similar odd situation if the Cardinals are at number 2, but the Patriots clearly are going to take Drake May at book it number 2 if that's where they're sitting. Book it. That's happening.
Right now, Panthers 1, so the Bears have number 1, Patriots 2, Cardinals 3, Commanders 4.
Cardinals could also be in a very similar odd situation if they end up with the second overall pick. Do they go with Kyler and move forward, or do they take a similar? And they could be, again, they could be a trade partner. And if the Patriots are at 2, they ain't moving.
Yeah.
Forget it. They'll take either one of them and move forward. So that's going to get them off the table. So we, at this point, have to jump 2 teams. This is if we lose out. And one of those teams, all we need is one of those 2 teams to win a game to jump us into one of those spots. And then we're in an interesting situation. So this is why I'm kind of like, all along when I keep hearing about is how this, is how that. Play the whole season. Let's see how he performs. Secondarily, who's making the decisions? And third, and I didn't see this part coming, how high is our pick? And it's looking like it's going to be a lot higher than I ever thought it was going to be.
Here's the thing, though. You actually need the Cardinals and the Patriots to lose 2 games more than you because you have the tiebreaker to be
on both of them.
You beat both of them. It's the Miami game from 2019 again. Yep. They beat the 2 teams in front of them and are a game better.
If they all have the same record, though, it then comes down to strength of schedule is what ends up happening.
Okay.
If they all have the same record, because there's no, so that's if they all end up with 4 wins, then I think it's strength of schedule. We'll have to see how that plays out.
Well, we played.
I'd have to look. I'd have to ask Seth Walter, like what how does that play out now? And I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I'd have to root for the Cowboys and the Eagles down the stretch because we got 4 games against them. I mean, that's going to crank our strength of schedule up quite a bit. So
I mean, the Eagles are for some reason cratering. If the Cardinals go beat them.
Right.
It's an all-time win for us. It's an all-time win for us. It would be fantastic. So, and the other thing, too, is this is what I just want to mention about Hal, because I've been rewatching, and the last couple of weeks have been rough.
Yep.
And this is the other reason why, when everybody went 0 to 60 on is he the guy, is he the guy, you haven't even seen him play a full season yet. So I think it's like hard to know, and the numbers are way off, so much so that they had to sit him last week. If you rewatch this Rams game, it was by far his worst game. He wasn't seeing the field very well. He was putting the ball in bad spots. I'm not down on him, and everybody has bad games, and I want to see what these last 3 are with him, and I think the Commanders are clearly doing the right thing by leaving him out there and let him play, because I think we all need to know what his future is here. But just keep this part in mind for all of it. Whether you love him, think we should get behind him, take a tackle, Marvin Harrison, whatever you think they should do at the high part of the draft, remember this part of it. He is under contract for 2 more years at almost no money. He's not gone. No matter what that outcome is.
Yep.
And if Caleb Williams is on the table, I don't know how you don't take him, even if you do love Sam Howell.
No, of course. No.
How do you not take him?
The talk all this year was they're not going to be bad enough to have a chance to get him.
Correct.
And now you do.
Well, now either way you do. Because the Bears, if you listen to Jalen Johnson and their team, they don't want them to do that. They may not listen to them.
Right.
It's within their rights to trade Justin Fields and take Caleb Williams, and that's possible. But if they come around to, you know what, we've turned our season around, and he looks pretty good, and our defense is better, and let's just stick with, and the guys love him, let's just stick with him, then they're going to get a king's ransom. Well, we're sitting with a pick that they'd want.
Right.
We keep them top 3 or 4. They get a stud left tackle, or they get Marvin Harrison and still keep Justin Fields. They're in an incredible spot. I think it's all on the table for us now.
I think the other thing here, too, is the Bears are currently sitting in the 8th spot with their pick, too.
Correct. 2 top 10 picks. They could get Marvin Harrison and one of the best defensive players on the board.
They need an edge rusher. So, I mean, here's the thing as well. You can look at this from 2 different ways. This has been the year of the backup quarterback in the NFL. And if you're staring at Justin Fields, you're going, how is he not better than the likes of Minshew, Browning, who else? But backup quarterbacks have been very serviceable this year. If you're the Bears, you've got to be thinking, if we give him a tackle and another wide receiver, and it doesn't work next year, then we finally know what's going to happen. We're going to draft another one. But I do feel like you almost owe it to... You also
have used so much draft capital on young players. You should have a team that is sitting there waiting to win no matter who the quarterback is.
Exactly. So that's what I'm saying. I think with them, you could argue it both ways, but no one's going to argue with you if you get Harrison and then you also take best edge rusher or one of the tackles. Because looking at how it is right now,
I mean, I think they should trade it, but it is the all-time. If you trade out of Caleb Williams and he turns into Pat Mahomes, you are an idiot.
You're the second. You've done it.
You're
again,
an idiot.
They didn't take Mahomes the last time over either.
Correct. You're an idiot. Like that's the risk here is the YOLO part of it.
Took your boy Mitch.
This was last year. I was like, let's trick them into YOLOing it for Bryce Young because I'd like to get my hands on Justin Fields.
Right.
This year is a true conundrum. That guy might be Pat Mahomes.
Yeah.
And if you trade it out of Pat Mahomes, you're an idiot.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
So I don't know what they're going to do. But after hearing that, hearing what the teammates are saying, seeing how he plays, knowing he's a very good player, and arguably Jordan Love looks pretty good. Jared Goff's okay. And Minnesota, we'll see what the future is because Kirk, doesn't have a contract right now. He's best quarterback in that division with a young team that has a ton of draft capital and cap room, so much so they can trade for people at 5 and 8 and give them $100 million.
Disagree. I think Goff's better, but yeah.
Maybe.
I'm just, in terms of consistency, Goff is better in my
Consistency, sure. High-end ceiling, not even close.
Sure, but
even close.
Fields is showing the same problems. Like, he's holding onto the ball too long. It's only when he's rushing does he make these dynamic plays. They lose games at home all the time. Like, the record is what the record is because Fields isn't good enough, too.
I look at him, though, and I go, that is a very much it's Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's never really been a great, accurate quarterback. That was my big issue with him early in his career. I'm like, I'm not sure this guy will ever be accurate enough as a passer. He's gotten way better, to his credit.
Right.
But he has these moments in him that are unusual. He has this high-ceiling skill set. Fields has the same thing.
Yeah, right.
Like, he's going to hit you one way or the other during a game. And so I don't know. I think we're screaming towards this. And so that's why I'm kind of done talking about how is this, how is that, because now we're in this position that I didn't think we would be in. But now that we are, you got to be open-minded about this. And I know this team will be, but you have to be. If you're going to get one of these two people, how do you not take them if you're this team?
Right.
How?
I think what also happens here in Chicago, I think you almost kind of have to roll with Fields because if Jalen Johnson is saying this out loud right now, it means they've talked about it within the locker room.
Yes.
We've been asked about it so many times.
There's other quotes from other players that said the exact same thing. We love this guy. He's our guy. Do not move off of him.
Correct. And so what I'm getting at here is if they draft a guy, you're going to freak out that locker room and you're going to head right back to a terrible record next year no matter who is.
True. And it all takes a week 1 354 touchdown game from Caleb Williams for everybody to go, you know what? This guy's pretty good.
Sure, but you and I know how this works, though, where guys in the summer have to put their work in, and all of a sudden, if they hear that's happening, you don't know what the status going into the season is going to be either. So I'm just saying.
The other interesting part will be if the Commanders beat the Jets, I'm going to get all the "you ruined Christmas" tweets.
Well, yeah, because they have.
Yeah,
because they have.
Like, y'all realize Commanders could win very easily this weekend.
They're not.
Rodgers isn't coming back. That team just lost 30-0. Trevor Simeon's their quarterback. Their offense has been awful all year. You realize it's very possible the Commanders win this weekend.
They're not.
I think it's very possible that they're going to win this weekend.
They're not.
I'd like to see what that crowd's going to look like. Christmas Eve Jets game, both teams out of the playoffs. Trevor Simeon playing.
It'll be half full. Depends on the weather.
Nobody's going to be at Fireman Ed's section.
It's Christmas
You're
Eve.
not even going to audibly hear the JETS chant.
I think you're underestimating that it's Christmas Eve and people are just going to be bored that
just
night.
To go?
Yeah.
Okay.
1 o'clock on a Sunday to just go see the Jets? Yeah, that's going to...
All right, be right back. Bram Western Show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital.